Hi guys, before we get into it, a very quick disclaimer that you'll find all my other Hammer reviews in my Hammer playlist, and there will be spoilers today for this 50-something-year-old movie. So this is the third Karnstein film, the previous two being The Vampire Lovers and Lust for a Vampire, and let me say I enjoyed this one pretty much the same as the previous two. All three of these Karnstein films are good, cheesy fun. I'm not surprised that they didn't win any Oscars. If you look at them on a technical level, you could probably pick more holes than I'm going to do today, and did do in my previous two reviews, but still, if you like Hammer, how can you not like these films? This one was directed by John Hough, not really a Hammer guy. He did a Robin Hood film in the 60s for Hammer, and he did this one. So this was his only Hammer horror film that he did. He went on to do the Witch Mountain films in the 70s. He went on to do Howling 4 in the 80s. Not the best Howling film, but certainly not the worst. In terms of actors for this film, Hammer managed to get the big dude. They managed to reel in Peter Cushing to be in the third Karnstein film, and the movie's all the better for it. Not the most ideal role for Cushing, though. I'll come back to that. Perhaps more notable than the fact that Cushing's in the film is the fact that we have a couple of twin glamour models in some of the main parts. So the twins of evil in this film are played by a couple of actresses called Mary and Madeline Collinson. I don't think they were strictly actresses at the time. They were, according to their Wikipedias, they were playmates. That's an old word for models. An old word for model. I'm not saying that they played with each other, or maybe they did. They were models, essentially. And I guess that they started off being models and then got roped into acting, as a lot of glamorous women were back then. They didn't have the longest acting career. If you look at their credits on Wiki, they only did a few films in the late 60s, early 70s, and I think this was their last. So they both packed it in after this film. For what reasons, I do not know. But they play our twins of evil, although, strangely, both twins are not actually evil. Just one twin is evil. So just to backtrack a little bit, we've got these two twins arriving at the main Karnstein village. The whole area looks completely different to how it did in the first two films, but never mind. They're going to stay with their uncle, played by Cushing, but this character Cushing's playing, he's basically like a religious zealot who just spends his days going around on horseback with his merry band of men looking for unmarried women to burn at the stake. He's basically the Witchfinder General. Very, very nasty dude. But his brand of evil comes into conflict with something that's going on at the Karnstein castle. There's one last descendant of Mercilla up there, that woman who's in the first two films, and this guy, he's dabbling in the occult. He manages to turn himself into a vampire halfway through this film, so what he's getting up to very much clashes with what Cushing's getting onto. You can almost make the argument that the true twins of evil in this film are actually this guy at the castle and the guy Cushing's playing. And then right in the middle we've got the two twins, one of whom is a pretty innocent girl. The other one is very promiscuous and can't help but feel attracted to the cause of the Karnstein guy. And I've not even got onto the main male protagonist, some kind of school teacher at the local school. So there's lots of different characters and factions in this film that all kind of clash and intermingle as the film goes on. It's quite a complicated little drama. I didn't know where it was going for quite a long time. I thought it would be more a simple affair of just, two evil twins who are killing people, and maybe we'll have Cushing playing a Van Helsing type figure who has to sort them out. But no, it's a little bit more complex than that. The two twins in this film are very good value. Well, for one thing, they both uphold those same glamorous standards achieved by Ingrid Pitt and whoever that woman from the second film was before them. But also, the parts played by the two twins are kept very simple in nature, I think, which probably helped the actresses. The evil twin is literally just evil and cocky. There's no more nuance to her than that. And the other twin is sweet and innocent. Butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. And there's no more nuance to her than that. I do wonder, though, how did the two actresses decide who was going to play whom? Was it just a case of one of them speaking up and saying, well, I'm a bit of a nastier bitch than you, so I'll play the evil one, I guess. I mean, when I try and put myself and my brother in their shoes, if we had to play a good guy and a bad guy, I've no idea how we would decide that personally, but whatever. Peter Cushing's character is easily the most repulsive guy I've ever seen Sir Peter play. This guy is absolutely horrible. Like I said earlier, he is essentially another version of the Witchfinder General, except this version has got no standards when it comes to deciding who he will burn at the stake. At least the Vincent Price version had some sort of standard. I mean, Vincent Price, he would twist things in his head to sort of guarantee that his intended victim was worthy of the stake, but there would be a little bit of brain work going on in there. With Peter Cushing, there's nothing. With this character that he's playing here, I can't think of his name, but he will just order anybody to be burned if they're not married, essentially. I'm not even sure he's checking for wedding rings in this film, and it's literally just a case of, if a woman is out and about and she's of adult age and she's not married, then she can go on the stake. In fact, there could be women in this film who are only 15, but they look of adult age, and Peter Cushing will still order them to be on the stake. He's a really nasty character. There's one moment where him and his band of merry men, they're going through the woods, and they come across this woman who's just walking along with a bundle of sticks. And without missing a beat, Cushing is like, "Yep, she's for the stake." Just horrible, absolutely horrible. I do think that The Witchfinder General is a more chilling film because it feels more like a real thing that you're watching. It really got under my skin watching that. I felt like I was watching a reenactment of how Britain might have been. This film, not so much, because it feels like a horror fantasy. It feels like we're still having fun, even though women are being burned at the stake. Plus, the special effects in this film, it's not like we're watching stunt men and stunt women set on fire. If that had happened, I probably would have got into the horror of it a little bit more and thought, oh. But because it's just like, you know, you've got an actress on a stake, and then in the foreground you've got some fire, and we're meant to think that the two are together. It doesn't quite freak you out as much, if you know what I mean. But still, if we actually take a minute to think what Cushing's character is doing in this film, he's a really nasty twat. And I was getting ready to be appalled with this movie for a while, because once the activity from Count Karnstein becomes more and more pronounced as the plot progresses, there's kind of a hint in the air that Cushing and his mob will align with the good characters, and that there will be some kind of redemption arc for Cushing's character. And I was totally not down for that. I mean, when you've burned a bunch of innocent women alive, there's no redemption for you. You don't get to come back from that and suddenly be the doddering, friendly uncle, you know, who has an Ebenezer Scrooge type arc or anything like that. No. So I was absolutely relieved when Cushing's version of the Witchfinder General meets his maker towards the end of the film in a very, very nice confrontation scene between him and Count Karnstein on like a balcony. I actually thought that it was going to be Karnstein who would die in this scene. I thought Cushing was going to kill him, and then we'd see later on whether Cushing got his just desserts or not. So for that scene to be flipped, and for Karnstein to survive a little bit longer and Cushing to go over the balcony, I thought that was a nice little switcheroo by the movie, I've got to say. And did you know that despite being in his 60s, Peter Cushing actually did that leap down off that massive balcony himself? How cool is Peter Cushing? No, he didn't actually do that. It's not often that Peter Cushing is outshined by another actor, but I would suggest that that is what happens here by Damien Thomas, who plays Count Karnstein. He gives a really theatrical, camp performance as the Count, but it's really enjoyable to watch. The film's introduction to this character is fantastic because we see the Witchfinder approach this lodge in the woods. Cushing peers in the window and spots a buxom blonde, and he goes inside. But it turns out there's a man inside this place with this woman. And I thought to myself, okay, well, both of them are probably for it. But then this guy just starts verbally fighting back against the Witchfinder. He just starts giving it this, but in a really piercing, penetrating sort of way that has the Witchfinder rocked back on his feet. And it's really impressive because it's not usually very easy to get the better in an argument with a religious nut job, because they seem to have all the answers a lot of the time, but on this occasion, the Witchfinder is basically blown out of the door by Count Karnstein's torrent of words, and it was just really fun to watch. And then the Witchfinder comes back on him with a pistol, and I had no idea how this scene was going to end. Later in the film, of course, we find out that Karnstein is not actually a man to root for. I can't understand why somebody would be like this in life. This is a guy, he's got all this wealth behind him, this fantastic castle, really good looks as well, and you think to yourself, why not just pick a woman, raise a family, mix with the local community to the point where when you die they'll build a statue of you or whatever. But instead, this guy, Count Karnstein, he locks himself away in his castle for the most part, treats women like crap, actually kills women to try and raise Satan or raise his ancestors or whatever. And I just think to myself, what are you doing? Why would you be like this? I guess it's just the curse of being a Karnstein that's polluted his personality or whatever. The scene where he does actually raise one of his ancestors up from the dead, Mercilla from the previous films, what a shame that didn't turn out to be Ingrid Pitt playing that part. It would have been so cool to have her sort of just come out of the shadows halfway through this film and you know, round this trilogy off. It would have been a good way of bringing the films full circle. But this film is still very glamorous, even in the absence of Ingrid. Every single part is played by somebody really good looking, it seems. My personal favourite lady in the cast is probably the woman who plays the school teacher or school teacher's assistant, just because she seems to have some brains to go with the nice bosom, I guess. But it's a very sexy movie, although I would say that this film, it gets the balance right between the horror and just trying to be glamorous. The first two films, The Vampire Lovers and Lust for a Vampire, I felt watching those films, as much as they are fun, it feels like the priority with those two films was to be really sexy and glamorous, and then the horror was going to take a back seat. This time around, I think that's been addressed somewhat. This feels like a proper horror film, albeit a slightly camp and fun one. But the glamour feels like it's just been pushed back into second place a little bit, you know. And for that reason, I think out of all three films, I think I might just say that this one is my favourite of the three. But certainly, it's very close between them. I've got one little negative to address just before I wrap up, and that's the fact that this story uses the whole identity swap thing that you often see in stories involving twins in movies. I'm just kind of sick of that now, whenever there's a movie with twins in it. But I'm speaking as somebody in 2024. Maybe when this came out in 1971, this sort of plot had not been done that often. So, you know, fair's fair, I suppose. Right, I'll quickly show you the version of the film that I've got. Here is my Blu-ray copy of Twins of Evil. It's a good one. The film looks fantastic on this. Not that many features, just a few trailers, TV spots. There's one deleted scene which I've not checked out yet, but I will. But the best thing about this version, other than the fact that it looks great when you're watching it, is that it comes with a little booklet. Did not expect that. I do like it when booklets come with Blu-rays and DVDs. It's not a massive booklet, like 12 pages or something, but some nice reading you can do on the movie. So there we are. Very much a recommended version, this. I can't remember how much it cost me. I'm guessing between £10 and £15, something like that. Well worth it for a quality film, though. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and find out how I'm going to score this thing. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bloody axes out of 5. That is an excellent score, and that just about wraps up all things Karnstein when it comes to Hammer. I'll be back very, very soon to do another Hammer film. I think my next one is going to be Hands of the Ripper. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.